when a 12-year-old cleaner's daughter shouted, "That signature is fake." Everyone laughed, until the truth she revealed saved a Saudi prince from losing everything. Welcome to our channel. If you love stories about kindness, courage, and second chances, you're in the right place. Please hit the subscribe button and tell us where you're watching from. The golden sands of Riyadh stretched endlessly beneath a sky the color of honey. And in the middle of that endless horizon stood a palace so vast it seemed the sun itself bowed before it, the home of Prince Khalid Al Mansur, a man whose name carried both power and pain. To the world, Khalid had it all: wealth beyond measure, influence in every corner of the kingdom, and a future tied to billion-dollar partnerships that spanned continents. But behind the palace walls, he lived in silence. A silence born of betrayal, from friends who stole, a fiancé who lied, and an emptiness no amount of gold could fill. The servants moved quietly through the marble halls. Among them was a woman named Samir, a humble cleaner who had taken the job not for herself, but for her daughter, Lena, a bright 12-year-old with curious eyes and a voice that never seemed to lose its warmth, even in poverty. Every morning, as Samir scrubbed the golden staircases, Lena sat near the courtyard fountain, reading whatever she could find: newspapers, discarded business magazines, even old calligraphy books from the prince's library. To everyone, she was invisible. But not to fate. It was a Tuesday, the day that would change everything. Prince Khalid was preparing to finalize a $200 million partnership with a European investment firm. The deal promised to expand his business empire, but also to prove to the world that he had recovered from the humiliation of his last failed venture, one that cost him both trust and pride. The prince's study buzzed with activity. Lawyers arranged stacks of papers, assistants whispered updates, and security men hovered discreetly by the walls. Samir was told to clean the far corner of the room, unseen and unheard. But when the chauffeur failed to pick Lena up from school, she had no choice but to bring her along. "Stay quiet, Habibti," Samir whispered. "We'll be done soon." Lena nodded, clutching her small backpack. Her eyes wandered across the grandeur of the room, the leather chairs, the thick scent of oud, the documents spread like secrets across the prince's desk. She didn't know it yet, but her gaze would catch what no one else could see. As the meeting began, the prince sat at the head of the long marble table, his white robe glowing under the chandelier. Across from him sat Mr. Verhoeven, the European CEO, tall, polished, and smiling with the confidence of a man who believed he'd already won. "Our partnership marks a new era," Verhoeven declared. "A bridge between Europe and Arabia." Khalid nodded politely. He wanted to trust again, to believe that honesty still existed. The chief legal advisor slid the contract forward. Page after page was reviewed, signed, stamped. The air carried the sound of pens gliding, smooth, final. Meanwhile, Lena fidgeted quietly beside her mother, her young eyes tracing every movement. Then she noticed something. On the final page of the contract, the one marked authorization of ownership transfer, was a signature. The prince's name, written elegantly in Arabic. But there was something wrong. The curl on the letter in Al Mansur curved upward instead of down. Lena's small heart thudded. She remembered. She'd once seen the prince's real signature on a thank you card framed in the hallway. It had been different. She tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mama," she whispered. "That's not how he signs his name." Samira froze. "What are you saying?" Lena whispered again. "That signature, it's fake." Samira's pulse raced. But before she could stop her, Lena stood up. Her voice trembled, but she spoke with the kind of truth that even kings couldn't ignore. "That signature is fake." The room went silent. Every head turned toward the little girl standing beside the cleaner's cart. Mr. Verhoeven chuckled, leaning back in his chair. "Children should not interrupt adults," he said coldly. But the prince raised his hand. "Let her speak." His deep voice cut through the tension like a blade. Lena swallowed hard. "Your Highness, I saw your real signature before. You always write the letter lamb with a small dot underneath, but this one doesn't have it." The prince blinked. The smallest flicker of surprise crossed his face. He reached for the document, staring at the ink as if seeing it for the first time. The room waited. Seconds stretched into silence. Then, softly, he said, Bring me the copy of my previous authorization forms. Within minutes, the palace's legal team gathered older documents. The difference was undeniable. The signature on the new contract was not his. Panic rippled through the room. Mr. Verhoeven's confident smile cracked. Khalid's voice, calm but cold, filled the air. Who drafted this final document? A trembling assistant stammered. It was sent by Mr. Verhoeven's office, Your Highness. They said it was an updated version for your records. The prince's expression hardened. He turned to his head of security. Seal the gates. No one leaves this palace. Within the hour, investigators uncovered layers of deceit, fake shell companies, hidden accounts, and an intricate plan to transfer ownership of Khalid's largest oil field into foreign control once the contract was signed. Even worse, his own cousin, Fard, had been secretly aiding Verhoeven for a personal cut of $20 million. Khalid stood by the window, staring into the desert night. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked back at the little girl whose courage had stopped it all. You saw what my men, my lawyers, and I failed to see. How did you know? Lena's eyes glistened. I love Arabic letters, sir. I read about handwriting in my mother's phone. I just noticed. Samira fell to her knees, crying. Forgive her, Your Highness. She meant no disrespect. The prince knelt beside them, something no one in the palace had ever seen him do. He smiled gently. There is nothing to forgive. You didn't shame me. You saved me. The next morning, the story spread quietly across the palace. A little girl's honesty had saved a fortune, and perhaps a man's soul. Prince Khalid gathered everyone in the grand hall. The marble floors gleamed like water. Samira and Lena stood nervously before him. When wealth blinds a man, God sometimes uses the innocent to open his eyes, the prince said. This child saw truth because her heart was pure. He turned to Samira. From today, you will no longer clean these halls. You will manage them. And your daughter, he smiled at Lena, will attend the Royal Academy. I'll cover her education until she becomes whatever she dreams to be. Tears streamed down Samira's face. Your Highness, we can't accept. You already earned it, he interrupted softly, when you raised a daughter brave enough to speak truth in a room full of silence. He placed his hand over his heart. May Allah bless you both. And that day, as they left the hall, the other servants looked at them not as the cleaner and her child, but as the girl who had saved a prince. Weeks turned into months. Mr. Verhoeven and Prince Fard were arrested and exposed in an international fraud scandal. The story hit global headlines. Cleaner's daughter prevents $200 million scam in Saudi palace. But Lena didn't care about fame. She cared about learning, about words, about truth. The prince often visited her school, sometimes sitting quietly in the back during her Arabic calligraphy lessons, watching the girl who had given him back his faith in humanity. One afternoon, he told her, Lena, you taught me something money never could. Power isn't strength. Integrity is. Years passed. The little girl grew into a young woman with a voice that carried purpose. She studied law, just as the prince had once dreamed for her, and the world began to call her the girl who could read the truth. 10 years later, Paris, France. The hall was filled with dignitaries, students, and proud parents. At the center stage stood Lena, now 22, receiving her degree in international law with honors. As she looked into the crowd, her eyes found him, Prince Khalid, older now, but with the same calm strength. He smiled faintly, nodding in pride. When Lena was invited to speak, she began softly. Years ago, I was just a cleaner's daughter. My world was small, until I learned that truth has no rank and courage has no uniform. One sentence changed my life. 3 words, that signature's fake. But what wasn't fake was the destiny that followed. A destiny written by God, not by ink. The audience rose in applause. The prince's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of grace. As Lena stepped down from the stage, she walked toward him. He rose slowly, and for a moment, the palace, the past, the titles, they all vanished. There was only gratitude. She hugged him tightly and whispered, You believed me when no one else did." And he replied, voice trembling, "You reminded me that truth can come from anywhere, even from the daughter of a cleaner." The camera flash captured that moment, a prince and a girl, bound forever by courage, not blood. And as the lights dimmed, the world remembered the story of the little girl who changed fate with one brave cry. That signature is fake. Never underestimate the voice of the innocent. Truth may be small, but it carries the power to save empires.